In the distant future, humanity had reached a stage where space travel was as routine as flying from one country to another. The most prized achievement of humankind was the colossal space station Odyssey, which orbited at the edge of the solar system. Built to conduct research, store knowledge, and serve as a gateway for further space exploration, Odyssey was home to hundreds of scientists, engineers, and explorers from across Earth. This was humanity's crowning achievement, and life aboard the station had been peaceful until the incident. On board Odyssey, they were preparing for a new mission. A team of astronauts was scheduled to leave the station to explore the neighboring star system, a venture that would take them farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. But as the launch approached, strange things began happening. At first, they were small, a few electrical glitches here, a flickering light there, unusual messages on the screens that no one could trace. The crew initially brushed these off as technical issues, but things soon escalated. One night, as the crew slept, the station's artificial intelligence system known as Athena began broadcasting an eerie warning: system breach detected. Possible hostile presence on board. The crew jolted awake, confused and alarmed. This was the first time Athena had ever issued such a warning, but when they investigated, they found nothing. No signs of a breach, no intruders, and yet the warnings continued. Captain Sarah Monroe, the seasoned and level-headed leader of Odyssey, gathered her team in the main command center to address the situation. "We've trained for everything. Let's keep calm and figure out what's going on." Her voice was firm, but everyone could sense the unease in her eyes. She ordered a full system diagnostic. Hours passed, and the team worked tirelessly, combing through Athena's code and every inch of the station. Still, they found nothing unusual. Then the unthinkable happened. The main power supply of the station began to fail. Backup systems kicked in immediately, but it was clear that something or someone was deliberately tampering with the power grid. Lights flickered, the hum of machinery slowed, and Odyssey felt strangely silent and still. The crew felt like they were being watched, but they couldn't pinpoint why. The mystery deepened when the crew discovered something that hadn't been on any radar. An old, abandoned satellite had somehow drifted close to Odyssey's orbit. It had no identifying markings, no record in any database. It was as if it had materialized from nowhere. Against her instincts, Captain Monroe decided to send a small team to investigate. The team consisted of two of the best engineers on Odyssey: Ryan, a sharp and analytical thinker, and May, who was known for her calm under pressure. As Ryan and May boarded the satellite, they found it in a state of eerie disrepair. It looked ancient, with controls and systems that hadn't been used in space for decades. What struck them most was a single terminal flashing a sequence of strange symbols. May reached out to touch it, and as her fingers brushed the screen, the terminal activated, displaying a message in plain text: "Welcome back." Her heart pounded. This was impossible. They had never seen this satellite before. No one from Earth should have. While they tried to decipher the message, the terminal displayed another line: "Launch sequence initiated." Suddenly, alarms blared in their helmets. They tried to disengage from the satellite, but their suits locked, binding them to the terminal. The satellite was activating as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. Back on Odyssey, Captain Monroe and the rest of the crew were watching anxiously. Ryan may report back what's happening, but only static came back. They were cut off. Seconds later, the satellite ejected from Odyssey's orbit, racing towards a deep, uncharted part of space, taking Ryan and May with it. Panic erupted on Odyssey. The crew scrambled to regain communication with the satellite, but it was gone, moving far faster than anything they'd seen before. They couldn't pursue it. Even if they tried, the station would be stranded without power. Captain Monroe was torn. The situation was spiraling out of control, and she feared for her crew's safety. She ordered everyone to gather in the secure command center and await further instructions. As the team regrouped, Athena broadcast another message: "Odyssey will reach its final orbit in 12 hours. The screen displayed a countdown, and with it, an image of the Earth, shown from a distance they could never have achieved. The crew looked at each other, terrified. They were still near Saturn. Earth was days away, even at their fastest speeds. But the countdown continued. Desperation grew. Monroe called an emergency meeting, and after a tense debate, they agreed on one risky plan: reprogramming Athena to override whatever commands it had received. They thought they could regain control and bring Odyssey back on course. As they attempted the reprogramming, though, they made a chilling discovery. Buried deep in Athena's code were hidden directives and embedded commands. They referenced coordinates that no one had seen before, labeled as the point of no return. Who had placed these commands and why? The files were heavily encrypted, yet through careful analysis, they managed to open one document. It was a message that appeared to be written by a former Odyssey crew member. The name shocked them. It was May's. But how was that possible? She had only boarded Odyssey recently, yet the file indicated it was decades old. The message read: "If you're reading this, know that Odyssey has been compromised. This isn't just a space station. It's a trap." Before they could react, Athena's lights went dark. and the station jolted violently. Something was controlling Odyssey, and it wasn't Athena. It was as though the entire station had a mind of its own. Monroe's heart pounded. Everyone brace yourselves. Whatever is happening, it's far from over. The hours passed, and the countdown continued. With no options left, Monroe and her team watched in horror as Odyssey slowly changed its course, drifting into a remote part of space. They felt the cold grip of isolation as the familiar stars of their solar system disappeared from view, replaced by nothing but blackness. Then the final seconds of the countdown arrived. The crew held their breath as the clock hit 0. Athena's voice returned, but it sounded different, mechanical, almost unrecognizable. Welcome, passengers. You have now entered the last orbit. Prepare for disembarkation. The station shuddered, and suddenly the outer walls opened. The crew saw what lay beyond, a massive structure, ancient and covered in strange symbols. It was a gateway leading to a place they could barely comprehend, far beyond anything they'd ever imagined. Monroe and her team looked at each other, feeling both fear and awe. They had no choice. This was the final journey, the true purpose of Odyssey. One by one, they stepped through the gateway, leaving behind everything they had known. As they passed through, Odyssey's lights flickered one last time, and the massive station drifted back into the endless dark.